All right, everyone. Last looks. Quiet on set. Roll sound. Sound speed. Roll camera. Camera speed. Scene one. Take one. Mark it. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry in related fields. You can find us here on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. Hello, everyone. Hello, the world. Welcome to a extremely important episode of Savannah on Film. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich, and our purpose here is to explore the economic and cultural impacts in the film industry here, and we're here on WRUU.org. That's 107.5 FM LP, Savannah, Georgia, community radio. Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And today I have a stellar cast here. We're doing this remotely from my home studio. So I've got some awesome filmmakers, gentlemen that I highly respect. And when I was putting this show together, I first want to warn you that opinions expressed here in this particular episode of Savannah on Film may not reflect WRUU or its partners or people there. That little disclaimer. We're here about truth today. We're here about listening and learning. And I myself am going to be doing a lot of that during this broadcast here. Let me introduce our panel of people here, and I want to thank them tremendously for making the time on this. But before I announce that, this is also going to serve as our 2-year anniversary of Savannah on Film. So I'm super excited. I had a thank you. I had an elaborate show planned. But with what's been going on the last several weeks in this country that's reverberated around the world, with George Floyd being murdered, it's affected me deeply, and I'm sure the gentleman here, it's affected on a level I can't even understand. So we're going to be talking some very tough and honest things here. And let me introduce the panel to you here on this show. We have filmmaker. They're all filmmakers. And we have Andre L. Johnson. And if you're looking on the screen, he's on my bottom right there. So there we go. Welcome, Andre. Andre's a photographer. You are a cosplayer with Unusual Rangers 5. And you guys got invited out to Comic-Con San Diego a few years back with Black Panther and all that. So you made your own costumes, which is fascinating. And Andre's got a lot of stories to tell. If you've watched listened to some of our earlier episodes, he was on before. All these gentlemen actually were on the show before, and I'm glad to bring them back, follow up with them. and talk about, you know, what's been going on in their careers, and you're going to hear a lot more from them. We also have William Patrick Tennerson. He's a filmmaker, a rapper, and he's up there in the corner there. Okay, I think he froze up. We might have froze up. Okay, forgive the internet, but that's okay. So we've got there we go. Let's try it again. Okay, William Patrick Tennerson here. He's a filmmaker, and you're a rapper. And what's your rapper name, sir?
Dubsky.
Dubsky. Okay. And I'm trying to think of your singles that you just had out. That
I have two singles out. Global featuring Marlo Jones and Melanie. And I have Something to Do featuring Kimchi and Kiara Renee.
Awesome. Where can those be found, by the way?
Actually, Spotify, iTunes, Google
Where
Play.
You get your music? Okay.
Yeah, definitely anywhere.
Excellent. And we've got a man that knows how to promote. Probably, I always quote him as being probably the person who, if I needed an agent, he would probably be my agent or my social media guy. Kareem McMichael. I almost want to call him the king of all media. I don't know, because every time I turn on something, Kareem's there. And
oh no.
Kareem was part of The Road to Desegregation, a very important documentary, right?
Yes.
And among many other films, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself, just if you can. I mean, we could fill the whole show with it.
No. Yeah, a filmmaker, definitely. I'm proud of a lot of my short film work in the categories of like drama and comedy. Even Patrick and I with the KCP project have had a couple of projects we've performed and released together. And then I am very proud of a lot of my documentaries, because some of them do deal with a variety of a plethora of things that's going on now. When we talk about different social justice things when it comes to racism, sexism, the economic gaps, recidivism, a lot of different things. So yeah, so that's the nutshell part of it. Yeah, I won't waste all the time.
One of your biggest award-winning ones lately is MLK Jr.
Yes, and that one, it's with everything that's going on in the world, that kind of hits deeper now than I feel like even when we were making it, and even with a lot of what we went through to get that film produced, because it's dealing with the exact subject nature of what's happening in the world right now. And even in art and in film, some people didn't want to hear or see that story, though it's real and it's happening. They didn't want to tell it the way that our perspective was.
Well, that's what excites me, and about this time in history. I'm 50 years old, and I'm all for equality, but I feel like we put band-aids on things. You know, it's another a black man that gets shot or gets, you know, incarcerated for no reason, and then we go on to a school shooting on the news, and then we go on to you know, whatever the sound bites are, and it seems like we forget, as a society we've become numb to this issue of systemic racism. And it's something it's not new. This has been going on for 100 years. It's 2020. I personally feel like we should have cured this. I call it a disease, racism. We should have cured this disease a long time ago, and we certainly can. But for me, this feels like the first time in my lifetime that I feel like everybody in the world, quite literally, not just in the US, but everybody in the world is kind of getting it. They're finally getting it. So what do you gentlemen, what are your thoughts on all of this? And let's start there.
Who wants to go first? I can go first. I'll keep it really brief. The biggest problem, the big thing people have to realize is this country was founded on the very notion that it was all men are created equal. That did not mean all men. It meant unfortunately European men.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, black men.
It meant white
Like
men. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's
yeah,
just call it what it is.
yeah. Black men, black people, black families were property. So nowhere the plan was never for us to be human. It was us to be property, to be workers, and to be just that through the various struggles, allies being over time, fighting from Jews, Asians, black, white, trans, gay, so everyone kind of working together over a multitude of years, trying to eradicate pretty much the foundation of America. No one wants to say it, but racism and discrimination is the very foundation of what America was founded on. And I think right now everyone is just tired and frustrated and very angry because we spent years fighting to get to this point where we thought, oh my God, the generations are dying off, and these new kids are coming up, and they're the ones who are going to take the lead, and they're the ones who are going to push it. And it was almost as if racism was dirt, and someone swept it under a rug and hit it, and then we kept tripping over it. What was that? Oh, it's nothing. Keep going, keep going. No, it's gone. No, nope. Slavery was 500 years ago. It's not here. Our segregation was this far away. And then finally, we went and looked and lifted the rug up, and we see all the racism, all the discrimination, all the corrupt officials, all the laws that were meant to not prosecute anyone. Like, I just found out, I'm kind of ashamed of this, that some southern states, if not all, I could be wrong, don't have discrimination laws. Like, none. I didn't know that. So literally, when Ahmaud Arbery got killed, I had no idea that most southern states don't have it. You would think southern states would have been the first to have discrimination laws, and we don't. So we have quite a bit of ways to go, and we're realizing that now, and it's scary. That it's 2020, and we have so much reform still to do in our police force. Even the police force. The police force was originally came from slave catchers. No one likes to talk about that, but that's where it came from, and
Right.
transformed to what it is now. So we're having to go back and literally change the foundation of everything that was supposed to protect us or keep us free. So
Yeah. And we know there's good and bad. And we hear the bad apples, the bad policemen out there. I recognize, of course, there are good policemen out there, but I can certainly see that there's racial profiling. There's an excessive use of violence, and if someone like I can see it, then I can't imagine what a black man in this country is seeing. Um, I saw a video, and I wish I could remember who it was. I've been inundated with a lot the last several weeks. I've gone from pandemic mode, which we're still in, and as the recording of this, we're seeing tremendous spikes in people all over the country, and which is still worrisome. Like, that wasn't enough. 2020 has been an incredibly crazy year, but I see more of the racism just showing its ugly head, and it was always there, and it's systemic. And even though, I've heard people say, well, I've worked for everything that I've got. Well, that may be true, but as a white person, yes, I've worked for everything that I've achieved, but maybe I had a head start, which I think that's, for me, I think that's part of understanding systemic racism, is that, there's this video where they have all these kids lined up of different races, and then the gentleman says, step forward if you had money for college, step forward if you had, such and such and such. And then the majority of the people that didn't step forward were the people that didn't have those advantages in life early on, like they had someone, a grandparent, or someone in the house that was helping them forward themselves to the next level. And systemic racism, it just has to end. You know, I kind of thought it would have to die off with certain generations, and I felt like over time we were getting better and we've made strides. But then 2020 comes and it's still there. Racism's still there, and in some ways, I feel like we've gone backwards in a way. But
Yeah, and I feel like that is, I mean, for so many different reasons. And you know what? And I feel like I'll go back to my documentary, Roach Desegregation. So this was 2013, and former Mayor of Savannah, Otis Johnson, I think, said it best in the documentary at that time. That racism is like the Savannah River. On top, the current might seem, kind of calm and cool, but when you dive underneath and that was 2013, and that was about the 50th anniversary on the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedoms that happened in 1963. So still imagine, even in that 50-year span, how many things we seem like, we're so far removed from, but then we're really not. And then I guess to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, and I feel like that's the same sometime when it comes to the film industry, some people, like you said, yeah, well, we work really hard for what we got and we got. But then, like you said, when you start peeling away, okay, the neighborhoods and the schools that you were able to attend, were they better equipped? The access you had to resources, even if you might have didn't come from the most predominantly good neighborhood either, but your access to resources and to still have a better opportunity, your access to jobs, good paying jobs, those things of that nature. You want to think about the film industry. I mean, I think it's getting better some now, but I mean, I think about the 1950s, 60s, 70s, even before. I mean, for African Americans to even get their films not only produced or greenlit, but then distributed after that, or given the smallest budgets because it was like, okay, we don't think that your product probably will sell. Even on down to when they made Red Tails a few years ago, I mean, like they had troubles trying to get Red Tails done until I believe it was Steven Spielberg who stepped in and helped fund the film to what's that Steven Spielberg?
I think was it George Lucas?
George Lucas, that's who it was.
Okay.
Yes, George Lucas stepped in. So even in the film industry, there's still these, I do see there's more employment for, hiring people to do different skills, whether it's women, African Americans. But I think on the top end, still when it comes to, okay, the writers, the producers, directors, we have more people that are, controlling the content, but it's still some kind of like gaps there too of people being able to tell their stories and get it distributed without either kind of facing some type of, not even necessarily backlash, but just that concern of, will someone fund this project? Or once it's funded, now can I find someone to distribute it because they're okay with the content as it is and they're willing to distribute it to tell certain stories and certain things.
How do you think we change that? How do we change the narrative? How do we open those doors that were closed, or back in the day were different doors, whites, blacks,
I think that things are changing. It's just so much pain and a lot of people are upset. But a friend of mine, he took a picture when Savannah had its protest not too long ago, and he sent it to me. And when I looked at it, it had so much diversity in there. And I remember, if you look back at some of the Martin Luther King protests, and you saw pretty much strictly Black. You might have saw a white person there or white person here, but most of the time it was like, I'm gonna be in the background, I'm gonna help you, but I'm gonna be in the background. They're not gonna see me, because if they do, they're gonna come for me too, and I'm not gonna be able to help you. Now we have white people, Asian, Mexican walking with us. And it's something that, I have an appreciation for when I'm seeing that, you see that they're attacking me, and some people are defending us now in the open. Not just, in the United States, you have people overseas realizing like, this isn't right. This isn't fair. This isn't how we should be living over like years and years and years and hundreds of years that we've been doing this. Like, what, people trying to hold on to certain whatever to like, one over the other person. Like it's bad. It's horrible. But at the same time, how do we go about, okay, I see some people doing it now, how do we make it faster? How do we, connect? because it's still bad. It's still bad. Pamela Turner, Michael Brown, George Floyd, like names, like it's names. You literally Aubrey, like it's names. Names is not like probably for every 100 Black people, there may be maybe 10 other colors, the other races dying, but for 100, like the ratio is just, it's maddening. It's maddening. So I think definitely more communication. Anger needs to turn more into passion to fixing the problem, because an eye for an eye is, somewhat what we want, but it's going to lead to chaos. I was very surprised, me personally being from Savannah, knowing that, it gets dangerous around here. I really thought we were going to do the same thing as Atlanta. And though it was strong, I don't think that we had anything too crazy as, some things that are going around the rest of the United States with riots and stuff like that. And that's
no, go ahead.
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like I said, that's just something that I personally appreciate, that I didn't have to worry about something crazy going on like that and wondering, hey, is my dad okay? Is my mom okay? It just was a good example that I hope that all of us, we could share to other cities and stuff like that. My
personal opinion of why it didn't get so bad in Savannah to that level was, well, of course, if you didn't see the National Guard troops on the side of Bay Street, if you're familiar with Savannah, out of camera range and all that Governor Kemp had sent down to help with crowd control. But more importantly, the march was peaceful. It went down to City Hall, and Mayor Van Johnson, who has gained my respect through the pandemic, how he was taking care of Savannah and saying, we're not going to reopen until we're ready. We're going to take this step by step. But the thing that I got the most out of when the watching some of that protesting live on TV was, and the crowd at first kind of booed it when he said, was talking about the police and this and that, and they're like, a little boo in the crowd. And he's like, no, don't boo. He said, this is what you do. He said, I became a policeman, and he said, I got elected to office because I wanted to change things. And he said, if you want to change things, get elected, get on those committees, take that oath to become a police officer, and remember what you went through personally and what you've seen your friends and family go through, and vow that you won't be that person, that when you get to those levels, get in there and make that actual change through legislation, through speaking out.
Yeah, we have to be the change we want to see. It's easy to stand back and be like, well, someone else will fix it. We did that. Someone else will fix it. And like you just said, vote, guys. Like I tell people all the time, stop Christmas tree voting. Stop going on a ballot. And I have to admit this, I've done it. Where you go, you only pay attention to the executive branch. The governor, the mayor, the president. That's it. Now look at Barack Obama. When Barack Obama got in office, we were like, yeah, he's going to change all these things. He put all these. Keep in mind, we were in a recession. When this guy, Bush, was out of office, we were trying to fix all these different things. And we voted him in, but we didn't vote in anyone to help him in the Senate and Congress. Nothing. We didn't.
Right.
We just focused on him. So he got in office and tried to do all these things to help the American people. He couldn't, especially African Americans, because unfortunately the House was mainly Republican, and they're like, listen, everything you send to us, we're going to turn it down. They said this to his face, and he kept sending it. So so years now, he was been saying, guys, you gotta go vote. You gotta research. I don't care if they're black. I don't care if they're a woman. I don't care what they are. They can easily have policies that don't support you, your community, or your people. Stop voting people in based on skin color, sex, gender, whatever the case may be, because it may come and bite you in the butt. Research your candidates.
Right.
Okay, what district you're running for, how small, they will represent you, especially your district. Research your policies, make sure it's someone you want to be in office. Vote all the things sounds familiar. Or I saw that sign out on someone's yard one time, and you just scratch it in. I've done it. I've done it. And right now, we're having to do a total reform, not just in mayors and like I said, this pandemic. This pandemic has shown us how our officials handle certain
Mm,
situations, and it's very eye-opening to us. Like, oh my
yeah.
God, I can't believe he's saying that. Oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. Like when Brian Kip came out, and he had just realized that people who are asymptomatic could pass on the virus, even though that information had been out for a while. I was like, are you not paying attention to your mayors? Are you not paying attention to what policies and town hall meetings that they're doing?
Right.
Big, big red flag. That has
I,
nothing.
I trust the people that are on the ground in that city first. Your local
Right.
government is where you're going to affect change the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you work your way up. A lot of people
Right.
have that notion, I'm going to change the entire world. Well, you have to start by changing your own heart, I think. And then, you radiate outwards from that. You change those around you, your community, for the better. And, honestly, hate spreads that way too. If you've got hate in your heart, you're going to radiate out that to the universe and everyone else around you. So it's better to radiate love out than it is. For me, Mayor Johnson, just the way he handled the situation, he got involved and got the rest of city council involved, and they were there on the steps, and he said, we're not going to allow this city, he said in a press conference before, to be torn up and burned to the ground, and these businesses, especially local businesses. While I have an issue with burning businesses down and stuff like that, I kind of look at the whole picture of things, 400 years of oppression, then and other things that have come along, police brutality, dealing with that on a daily basis, getting that look, or when you walk into an elevator and someone not holding the door for you, or as a black man, somebody
Flipping the
seeing
person because they
you,
think you're gonna rob them.
if you've got a hoodie on, you can obviously, we've seen before, what, Trayvon or whatever, that got that. And then there's this empowerment, in my opinion, that I've seen, where people feel that their racism that they've been holding inside of them, that they can just blatantly call out people and say, you're not American, you're not this. They're probably more American than you realize. And I really wish everybody would do their genealogy, and they would actually do the DNA kind of testing personally. And I think you're going to find genetically that we're all related, in that, in some way, shape, or fashion. And that on a scientific level, for me, brings it home more. That's a good argument for the fact that we are one. And like you said, Andre, it's the world we choose to live in. And I personally don't want to live in a world that looks exactly like me, that thinks exactly like me. I want a world that paints in many different colors. And
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people, unfortunately, base at the very foundation, empathy and sympathy is gone. The very empathy of equal rights. Black people don't want super crazy treatment. We never have. If
mhm,
someone commits a crime, they have the right to be tried by their peers. Guilty or innocent, they have that right.
right.
The problem is we're not even making it to the courthouse. We're not even making it to jail. We're literally dying on the street because someone sees us, again, and this is something Kareem and Patrick might have felt. I know personally I have for the longest time. I hated being a big guy. I hated having facial hair because automatically people thought I was older than I was, stronger than I was, uh, more of a criminal. So I said a profile that was set up, unfortunately, by white men, that I was now a criminal, and I wasn't. So over time, it was always that rhetoric of don't wear a hoodie, don't have your hands in your pocket, don't touch anything in the store, don't be in a group of black people all together. No, you can't wear your do-rag. Don't wear a wife beater outside. It was so many things we had to do just so we weren't labeled, and people didn't know us. And to this day, I'm 30 years old. I still don't do it. How many hoodies are in my closet? Two. Just two. I think I've only owned maybe 4 hoodies in my lifetime. They were gifts, and that was
Right.
it. Other than that, I don't buy them. Do rags. I was never allowed to wear one outside. It was always to wear it in the house, can't wear it outside. It's a head covering. Anyone else wears it, it's okay. For some reason, if I wear it, I am automatically stereotyped. Even having longer hair, having, or gold teeth, they're accessories. The people don't see them as accessories. Immediately, is somehow you are affiliated with the wrong crowd of people.
And I
So
think, me personally, I think that when the protesting, I don't want to call it riots,
mhm.
but the protesting, there were far more peaceful protesters that the media doesn't show you. That I think there were some groups on the far reaches of probably both sides of the spectrum that were probably causing burning this and burning that. There is possibly some information out there to support that.
Well,
And
my friends are
yeah,
my friends who are cops, and I'm gonna say this short thing. Between Texas, Florida, South Carolina, they said when 95% of the people they arrested didn't even live in the city or state that the riot was
right.
happening. So they're like, "Where are you
Yeah.
from? Delaware, Missouri." I'm from all these. And they're like, "How are you arresting all these people and none of you even live here?" So it's like Savannah. Savannah was doing what it needed to do as citizens, doing what we need to do to come together. Just a few days ago, maybe yesterday, I found out there were some people from Charleston. They took
Mhm.
buses down here, and they were down here trying to break the windows down at City Hall. And and it was the citizens who were stopping them, the people, Savannahans, who were like, "Hey, stop! I'm trying to enjoy my wet willies. I'm trying to have a good day.
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah. Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
please stop!" Like,
So maybe it's come have a drink with me. Let's
yeah, come
talk
on.
instead of you
Yeah.
burning
Something.
my city down. You
Yeah.
know, um, I've had members of my family in the military. I've had members that were on the police force. And this in no way, please don't misunderstand us saying that everyone is bad, but we're looking at systemically, like this goes back hundreds of years. And this goes back to when people were brought over here against their will to this country, and they were slaves, and for a short amount of time with the Emancipation Proclamation they were technically free. But a lot of those people that were slaves that were freed had nowhere to go. They weren't really given, as far as I know, any kind of wealth or much land. And so some of them had to work at the same places. It's literally like a company came in and changed the name. It's just under new leadership, except now the leadership can't outright kill you, and do horrible things that were done to the slaves, even though later on they still did. We've we've come a far way, but we've also slipped back. I think that we talked
Well,
about a
then
little bit ago.
I think Andre said it, a little bit best earlier too, and some of what we talked about. And to me, well, I saw a lot of interesting things at the protest, though I went down there kind of that evening, closer to when the curfew was about to come in. But I think the thing that stood out the most too, though, there were people on both sides, whether it was the military down there looking at the protesters and the protesters looking at the people of the military, was this understanding of, hey, we want things to be better too. We don't, well, don't, obviously don't do certain things because then they'll have to do their jobs too. But
Right.
that's why I think nothing really happened here. It was a really good example of when everyone can see above everything and had the understanding, like going forward, if we can
Right.
get past the initial kind of like strife,
Right.
then where does the real change begin? Because then even after all, I mean, whether it was the civil rights protest or stuff after that, and even now, certain little things were probably put on paper and certain policies were maybe changed, but that was it. It kind of got swept away again. And then no one ever really did anything about it until we're back in situations like this. I do think going forward, though, we saw it here even with Van Johnson. There are some other cities throughout the country that are looking at changing, starting with policing, how people are treated, how things are handled,
The
training and
chokehold, like
policies there.
not doing that
Yeah.
anymore.
Um, I know we talked about it earlier too, even if you don't, I don't necessarily think I want to run for office right now, but I sit on a board with the city of Savannah, the Cultural Affairs Commission. I used to sit on the Film Commission. These boards are created too, though, to be a representative of the citizens of that city, and then to hold city council or the county commissioners too, depending, accountable for different things. Case in point, millions of dollars get pumped into police departments across the country, even just like in Savannah. And just maybe 2 years ago, city council, though, decided it would be okay to strike more of the funding for the social services, cultural arts, and affairs stuff, and pump more money into the police department. Well, now, if you maybe reallocate some of those millions of dollars back into certain neighborhoods, into programs, into activities, into things for people to do that will give them a better opportunity, that will open their opportunity pool up so much, versus, well, let's put it in the police department, into security cameras and lights in your neighborhoods, and nothing changes. You're still living in poverty. Some people might get out of it, but your opportunities still haven't really opened up because they're not putting money where some of the money should go.
Very good point. We have to take a few commercial breaks right here, a few advertisements you're going to hear. And then we're going to be back with more of this discussion here on Savannah on Film, here on 107.5 WRUU. Be right back.
Now you have a chance to support both Savannah independent artists and WRUU during this shelter-in-place order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Creatives in Need is a group of independent artists hosted by the Roots Up Gallery, which is collaborating with WRUU during this shelter-in-place to offer an online art gallery at www.rootsupgallery.com. For every work of art sold at this online gallery, the artists receive 80% from the sales and 20% goes to WRUU and its programs like Art on the Air. Interested listeners can go to www.rootsupgallery.com to start shopping today. This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. Social distancing means minimizing contact with people. It also means that if you are near someone in public, try to stay at least 6 feet away. The less contact people have with one another means the less opportunity for the virus to spread. Slowing the spread of the virus means that we can keep our healthcare system from becoming overwhelmed. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov.
WRUU brings you the most diverse and passionate local radio programming on the air in Savannah. This all-volunteer and nonprofit community radio station accepts no money from any form of government. Our diversity and independence is made possible only through the generous financial support of listeners like you. We rely on your annual and ongoing monthly contributions to cover the many costs associated with bringing you our broadcast and web programming. If you are a contributor, thank you. If you're not yet a contributor, please show your appreciation of the role WRUU plays in your life by becoming a contributor in any amount. You can donate quickly and easily by credit card or check. Just find the donate and subscribe links at wruu.org. Thanks for listening to and supporting WRUU.
This is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
And we are back here on Savannah on Film. I'm your host, Ed Ciucevich. We're here on 107.5 FM Savannah. That is www.wruu.org. We are Savannah Soundings community radio with global soul. And just a bit of a reminder, the thoughts and expressions here that are being presented on this show may not necessarily reflect those or the values of WRUU or anyone that does stuff with them. I don't have the official, whatever, but these are a lot of our personal opinions here. And I'm joined on this very special episode. This is my 2-year anniversary episode of Savannah on Film. And in spite of, and we've got so much great stuff coming. In spite of a big, wonderful celebration, this show for me is always about my guest. And I have 3 of Savannah's best, this region's best filmmakers and photographers. I've got Andre Johnson. Just wait for me there, if you will. Okay. There's Andre. He's a filmmaker, photographer, cosplayer with Unusual Rangers 5. They've done a lot of cosplaying and stuff like that, and he's an entrepreneur, as well as the other 2 gentlemen here. I have William Patrick Tennerson, Dubsky, right? He's got a couple singles out there you may want to check out, and I've checked him out. I really enjoyed him. And he's also a filmmaker, a photographer. And then we have Kareem McMichael, he's written, directed, produced, everything. The Road to Desegregation is one of the definite high points of his career. MLK Jr. That's great. Is it MLK Jr. or MLK Jr. Boulevard? Okay, we froze up. That's okay. Technical glitches.
Titled it that too. Yeah.
Okay, so it's MLK
Junior Boulevard. Yeah.
Boulevard. Okay, I didn't say the Boulevard. Okay, just want to make sure. And which is won very many awards, been in a lot of festivals, and Kareem's got a great body of work. All these gentlemen do. We are here having an honest conversation from our points of views. These gentlemen's personal dealings within the film industry and outside of the industry, and dealing with racism. And I want to, this goes out to the whole panel, and, feel free to answer. Inside the film industry, we kind of touched on this at the beginning. What are some things that you personally think we can do to change, to make it more accessible, the different levels of film for people of color, Black men, Black women, etc.?
I guess if I'll jump in and start on this one. I believe a couple of things, and don't get me, there are some organizations like, Netflix, HBO, certain sites in the past couple of years, I'll say maybe like the past decade, have done a really good job of trying to hire more content creators of color and other demographics to share and tell different stories. But I guess what also more could be done, well, I'm gonna say a few things, but just call it how I see it. In our own community too, reaching back and help our own some, helping us. If you're already maybe at a certain point, open up, and some people do, I think like Shonda Rhimes and some other people, like opening up those other doors and opportunities to, Issa Rae's a really good example of that too, of someone who she started online, and then now she's with HBO with Insecure and stuff. So opening up opportunities for other people to come to the table as well. Fortunately, there's a lot more access to technology and ways to distribute stuff, but sometimes it might not necessarily always reach the masses. And I guess I would say for other people who aren't necessarily African American, if you are going to invest in someone who is and in their content, then you need to believe in that story, invest, especially if it's not necessarily telling a false narrative, and even if not, it's not your perspective. Invest in it, believe in it, and stand on it, and do not try to change the person's story or narrative. I mean, wholeheartedly, that's pretty much exactly what we did with trying to create MLK Jr. Boulevard. And you were there on the front end of the initial setup of the project, but you and a few of the other crew members were the people but you all got it done. You knew this was a story that needs to be told. You have not had that experience of being in that walk of life, but the character DeAndre has been me. I have been places where I've been, someone told somebody to go follow me down the aisle because I'm in the store and it's cold. I have on a big jacket though. Or cops surrounding me because I matched the description of another suspect, but I wasn't the one, but they have to, make sure. So I've been there before. And to have someone who never has to try to tell me otherwise, or the Black man who wrote it otherwise, I found was a strong problem. So if people are going to invest in projects or help produce projects, then that's what they need to do. Do not try to change someone's narrative and story.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because every film rides on a story, and if the story is told and it's not told in the truth that the screenwriter, the writer's trying to get across, then it's kind of a watered down version. We don't need watered down. We need actual, authentic, real,
Well,
that you feel.
the black narrative is very uncomfortable, especially for white people. It's unfortunately that our narrative the way it is because of white people, unfortunately, and that makes people uncomfortable. And we get it. We're uncomfortable too. We didn't want it to be this way, but it is. Unfortunately, the black narrative is slavery, segregation, Jim Crow. That's what our narrative is. So we see this narrative all the time, and people are just like, I think some people have gotten numb to it, just used to it. Another slave movie, another movie about slavery, another movie about a civil rights leader. So when you have movies like, remember the Gods of Egypt that came out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
People were outraged. The main actors were, I think, Chadwick Boseman was in that movie. He played one of the gods, one of the only black gods in the movie, and people were upset about it because they were like, no one in this film. You had like, was it Russell? Who was it? Who was one of the guys?
I think it's Russell. Was it Russell Crowe? I
I think
don't.
it
I
was
think it was
Russell
Russell Crowe.
Might be.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't go see it.
I went to go see it. I saw it for free. My friend went to the movie theater. It was like, Andre, you were talking about this movie. I'm working, come to the movie. I want to see it. I was not going to pay for it because I was like, I really want to see it, period. My friend was like, Andre, we're going to the theater. We have a free movie day. Come see it. I want to go see it. And it wasn't great. And one thing someone said was, as much as you want to boycott this movie, what you need to do is strategize, mobilize, and you tell the story. We need to open, instead of waiting for someone to invite us to the table, you would think that these producers and these directors would hire on African Americans or people of African descent to come in, advise on this film.
At least be an advisor and say, hey, that's not how that was done,
They don't because they don't want to change their narrative. They want the narrative to be what it is. So now we're at a point now where instead of us waiting for someone to invite us to the table, we're now in a position where we're creating our own table. So if we want, like Black Panther, we were like, all right, we want to tell the story how we want to tell it, and it became pretty much a worldwide phenomenon.
It was,
It was.
And a well-written film.
Right. And was it? I think for a lot of people, they're happy that we weren't finally a joke. Like I think the last royalty movie we had was Black Royalty Coming to America, but that was meant to be a comedy. It wasn't meant to be a serious film. And when between Coming to America and Black Panther, how many years is that between the two?
30. It was about 30.
About 30 years.
I'm trying to do the math. There's a rule I have on this show. There's no math to be done on this show by the host because I'm not good at math. But yeah, you're right. And I know this is off the subject, but Eddie Murphy, what was it? The Dolomite film that he did on Netflix, which I thought was fantastic. If you're an up and coming filmmaker, you can see the struggles he goes through, not necessarily racially or whatever, but just being a filmmaker, you see the struggles in that. So, and that's something if you hadn't seen, you should definitely check out. But it's funny though, in 2020 eyes, how we look back on things of the past, even in the recent past, and there's things that I look at that maybe films I watched or music I listened to, and I cringe now, and I'm like, oh, that's not cool. I know that's not cool anymore. It's not cool because it's not cool. It's not cool because it's not cool with me, and I'm not the person that thought I might have thought this particular thing was funny. I was watching well, Kareem knows I'm a big Michael Jackson fan, and you know, Andre. I mean, I've always been. I admire people, their art, and me and Andre talked off camera about this beforehand. Besides whatever supposedly happened, creative or personally in his life, I still admire the being a creative person. I that creative process is what I admire, and
Showmanship.
you know, for me, I can separate. It's hard sometimes, but I can separate the scandal, the whatever, from the creation, from the art, and
Mhm.
and sometimes, you know, we're a culture of where what we see makes a difference. Thank God for social media and George Floyd, because had there not been a video of that, had somebody not turned their phone on, that person is a hero to me because they documented this. Otherwise, this probably would have gone by the wayside and no one would have known the struggle that George Floyd went through. It might have been just another name and on to the next atrocity. So that leads me to ask, how do you think social media has affected? I think it has affected it greatly. It's putting literally, you know, even the body cams of some police. There was one place where they didn't have them turned on until after they went in there. So I'm not saying all police are that way. Don't get me wrong. It's just, you know, this particular situation, they did not have their body cam on. And are you for more surveillance in that? You know, is that a
I,
good question?
I would say, and I'll keep mine kind of short. I think especially if you put on cameras, you put cameras on street lights and all over the place, it just comes down to personal accountability. Because look at the training. These had something on the news recently that a lot of officers, something called warrior training, that a lot of officers have been going through for years. And
Right.
when you think this training is very extreme, they tell these officers the best way to catch a killer is to become a killer. That's what they tell officers. This is what these officers are trained. If you want to catch a killer, you have to become a killer. You're making these officers predators, and guess what they see us as? Prey. Black, white, women, whoever. We are prey, and they're already in this predator mindset. So I think the cameras are good because keeping people kind of like if you're biting your nails, it's the hot sauce you put on to kind of remind you not to
Right.
mess up. But it shouldn't be, oh, I don't need to do bad because I might get caught. No, do good for goodness sake. So as far as cameras or more surveillance, it's good for the world because what's going on now has been going. I'm pretty sure Patrick Kareem, even you, Ed, you've been around the block. I can tell you this isn't new. Remember in 1990, was it 1992 with Rodney King?
Rodney King, yep,
Yeah, Rodney
Right.
King.
1990.
Like
Yep.
that got caught on camera, and people were like, oh my
I
God, I
was
can't
appalled
believe
by
this.
that, you know,
Yeah, I
like,
can't believe it happened. This isn't new. None of this
Yep.
is
right.
new. It's just finally getting its debut on stage. So I think surveillance is good for the world to understand that hey, we're suffering, we're going through. Unfortunately, there are countries like Korea and China, they're not allowed to use the internet. They're not allowed to see global news. They can't see certain movies. They're only seeing us through the lens the government wants them to.
Mm.
For
But
us, cameras are good um, for the world to see, understand. Hey, there are problems. It's not just like
now China's taken it a step further where they actually have a point system, and if you're rude to somebody, it goes in your this app or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I know there's been a movie done about that, and I think that's a little too much, you know, but I don't know, you know.
It's great, with that China system. Like I just recently found out about this. If you mess up in any way, they can make it so you can't take buses, you can't take airplanes, you can't rent in a certain neighborhood. Like you
Right.
literally get your points deducted or points on your record.
Right.
It makes it so that you actually, I'm not sure even how you even get points. I have to research this. How you get out of that hole, out of this hole of you can't.
Wow.
Sorry, you can't go live in Pooler. You gotta live in East Savannah. Sorry, you can't go live in Richmond Hill. You have to go. This because of credit or money because of points. So I think it's a very I have to research this a lot more. I think it's very interesting. But going back to the police, um, situation, body cameras are fantastic because, again, like I said, if we didn't have that video of George Floyd, if we didn't have that video of Ahmaud Arbery, we wouldn't have known what actually happened because they told a whole nother story. Because keep in mind, Ahmaud Arbery was killed in what, February?
February.
Right.
That video didn't come out to when?
So like April.
April, yeah, it was like
by
March,
April.
April. Yeah, you're right. I
yeah,
think.
At least at the end of March.
right.
Right.
And the guy who filmed it, he only turned it in to protect himself. That's the only reason he turned it in.
What the ironic thing is, he actually indicted himself too, in a way, you know, and he's honestly an accessory. If you see something, in my opinion, if you see something and you fail to do something, then you're part of the problem. You're
Right.
just as guilty. You may have not actually done it, but you know, he could have stepped in. Now, if he was filming it and tried to step in and help Aubrey in that way, that would be a totally different story, you know, but he did not. And so therein lies the blame, right? I think rightfully so. So where do we go from the protests that are literally around the world, which is encouraging to see? Where do we go from here? What do you gentlemen think is going to become of this? I hope and pray it's not just, okay, this is the flavor of the month, it's on to the next thing in the news cycle. You know, what are the lasting change that you think we're going to get out of this? Out of the protest.
That's a good question. I don't know when lasting change. I don't know. I wanted to say this story earlier. I was on set working on a film in Atlanta for a TV show, and this lady had to be like in her 70s. And I was on a lockup. I'm a production assistant. And I was on the lockup and I was trying to prevent people from coming or just ask them to wait for a second. And older lady, she walked by me and she had her head down. And I waved for her to stop and she kept going. But it seemed like it wasn't that she was ignoring me. It was more she was ignoring me, but she also was fearful of me. So I kept at a distance. She's walking, I'm coming to the side out of her peripheral so she can see me again. And she didn't see me the second time. So then I actually placed my hand on her and asked her, ma'am, can you wait for a second? And she was like, I don't have any money. Then I was like, ma'am, I don't want any money for you. We're shooting right here. And I just didn't want you to get in the way of the shot. If you could wait for a second, I'll help you. But then, you know, she's like, oh, she started understanding. And then she was like, oh, I thought you was one of them homeless people asking me for money. And unfortunately, I like helping y'all, but I didn't have any money. And she started laughing about it. And I disregarded because at the same time, I was like, I don't think I look homeless. I think I got a walkie on. I got earphones on. I clearly have security on my, I think I had my PA vest on. And it was crazy, but I still walked her when we cut. I walked her to her area and stuff, and she was just like, "What show is this? Oh, I like that." And I knew that she didn't know what she was talking about, and it was crazy to me when I was like, "She's at least 60 to 70," and on her mind automatically was fear. He's got to be poor, just because of how I looked, and. The big worry is, you know, you were in slavery times, you know, back when there was segregation. Now we've come past that, you know, and she still feels that way, or somewhat still feels that way. And so that is a good question. Like, you know, there was also a video that I think some of us have seen. There was someone that was 46, someone that was 31, and someone that was 16. And the 45, 46-year-old was so mad. He's like, I don't care anymore. Like, they can just shoot me. They can just do this to me, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But we have to fight. It was like, no. The 30-year-old was like, no, you know, I understand what you're saying. But this 16-year-old, if you keep guiding that sort of violence and stuff like that, if we in our generation now don't guide that, hey, we need to figure out how to do this in a better way, then they're going to do the same thing that the 46-year-old is doing out of frustration.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off there. We got to end the show real quick on the radio here. And we're going to continue on YouTube. So, and we'll continue with this. FM in Savannah, Georgia, and worldwide on www.wruu.org. Join us next time for more intriguing insights into the vibrant Savannah film community here at Savannah on Film. All right, we're back, guys. So, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just looked at the time and we were like right on it. So could you continue with that story? So, Patrick.
Yeah, I think you were saying as far as how do we make it last, or
Right.
really
Lasting
stop
change.
racial profiling. Yeah, lasting change. And the story I was giving was basically a 46, a 31, and a 16-year-old. The 46-year-old was upset. He was tired. Yeah, he was a black man. All of them were black.
All of them black.
All of them. Right. Black generational. And the 46-year-old was so frustrated and so tired, that he didn't care. He's just gonna go out swinging. But and you have this 16-year-old. He's looking at the 31. The 31-year-old saying, "I understand. I feel what you're saying." He's grabbing like, "How old are you?" And they're all what, 10 years apart, at least 10 years apart, and it's still going on. It's still going on. So for that, if we in our generation, I'm 30 as well, and it's crazy, but like I think about that. I think about how do I get the thoughts across, or how do I at least set a good example enough to make a change, but also show that my younger siblings, my younger friends, my younger cousins, and our next generation that we got to do this in a better way. We keep pushing on that, because if we don't, it's gonna continue, or it's gonna get worse than it already is, and it's already bad. It's already bad. And like I said earlier, the lady, I was pissed. I was pissed. I was really upset. It was really a blow for me. And it was random. It was random when I was on set, and this lady that had to be 70 thought that I was, a homeless man or somebody that was gonna mug her. Like,
did she really think you were homeless, like you said, or was it, I
didn't know. Even if it was a joke, it was just like, why say that? And that's what I'm saying. I'm looking
offensive.
at my clothes. Yeah. But I mean, I laughed it off, and I even, talking to my my coworkers and stuff and my superiors, I think one of them was like, "Are you okay? Do you want to? You think I should talk to her?" And then it was like, "No, like there wasn't. It's the situation is past." But personally, I was just like, "Wow, like I think it's not something that it was super like I'm mad. I'm just gonna mess up her house or anything." It was just like, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, especially when I know my intentions was just to help her. But for her, even, if she didn't know what I was doing, and I understand that. That's also why I came at an angle, peripheral, like just so, because, she is an older person. I didn't want her to feel, like assaulted or anything. So, but it's just stuff like that. Again, if someone that's 70 is still thinking that and not thinking better, and there are people that out there that's trying to change the narrative or change the
there are
status
people in
quo.
that generation. My personal thought has always kind of been just worst case scenario. If nothing changes, that racism is going to have to slowly die off through those generations, because this generation has shown us their worth. Now, I don't know if are they millennials or Gen X or Z. I don't know what letter we're on now for generations. But I don't know what the classification of this generation is, whatever they are. Maybe they'll be the George Floyd generation, which would be awesome. I don't know. But to see so many people getting it, and it's a lot of people that look like me that are finally getting it, and it's a shame. It feels like, does it feel like, is my question, does it feel like this is the kind of appropriation of the Black culture that we finally need? You know, that it's not cool to kill Black men, to profile them, you know, because I mean, white culture does have, you know, we latch on to a lot of Black entertainers. Am I wrong in saying that? You know,
Oh, you're
you
not. You're
know,
not. You're not wrong in saying. The problem is when people separate Black culture from Black people. We are Black culture. That's who we are. So
right.
I know some people who are racist. And I've talked to many. I had neighbors. I had neighbors who spoke to me every day, waved at me every day, small talk every day, and they were between the ages of 45 up to 70. Right. Their son, who I went to school with, I told him, your mom was so nice. Then he's like, he told me, he said, Andre, don't be fooled by that. He said, my parents are racist. I was like, what?
Wow.
She was waving at me the other day. I talk every day. He was like, oh, you think that's them liking you. He said, no, that's you stay over there and they're gonna stay over here. You can be their neighbor, but you can't be in my family. Let me not confuse you with that fact. You can be my coworker. And unfortunately, racism has transformed into this very non-hostile kind of almost like a puppy. It went from being this vicious dog, and because vicious dogs weren't the thing anymore, because laws got put in changed, this vicious dog turned into this puppy where people are like, they're still racist. They're not burning crosses on my yard. They're not hunting me
Right.
down. At the same time,
Right.
I can't marry into the family. They probably won't hire me. They're still afraid of me. It's that same narrative. And I think education is very important because a lot of my friends, like racism is taught. No one's born, babies aren't born, no one's born a racist or a bigot or misogynist. No one's born that way. You're taught that behavior. And unfortunately, in certain areas, some people are taught they're better than others. Some people are taught black and black crime. Every time I turn around, anytime someone dies, gets killed, something happens. But what about black and black crime? I said, yeah. What about crime? Because that's what it is. It's
Right.
just crime.
It's like the Lives Matter response when Black Lives Matter comes up. You know, of course all lives matter.
Right.
It's just it's I'm trying to think of a good way to describe what Black Lives Matter. And one way I see, there's this cartoon and it shows all these sheep and it shows Jesus, and it shows this one sheep that's about to fall over the cliff, and or Jesus or a shepherd. You know, Jesus was a shepherd, so he's not worried about the 99 sheep. He's worried about that one sheep. And so yes, all sheep's lives matter, but this sheep that's fallen over the edge or about to fall over the edge right now, it's critical. This is like all lives matter is, to me, means excuse me, Black Lives Matter to me means we need help. It's like a call. It's like a 911 emergency. It's like
Exactly,
this.
because Black lives are in danger. It's not the fact that we don't know that all lives matter. We just need your help explaining that, yo, my life is in danger.
The problem
Right.
is All Lives Matter was created, unfortunately, to snuff out Black Lives Matter. It was never meant to help anyone. It was never meant to
Right.
support Asians, gays, trans, black. It wasn't.
Right.
It was made as this um, a way to tell people to be quiet. That's really what it was made for. So that's why
Mhm.
when trust me, I would love to get behind All Lives Matter. But the very foundation of All Lives Matter came from, unfortunately, white people
Mm.
being upset that Black lives were getting this stage, this finally, this help, this attention that it needed. Trust me, we know there's a problem in the Black community. Trust me, we know problem in every community. But the fact
Mhm.
that every time we say, "Hey guys," Black and matters is just a small, like, what's smaller than matters?
Yeah, Michael Che had this special from I think 2016 or 2018.
Hmm.
Y'all saw, I actually saw the special, but I saw it pop up on my feed the other day, and he's like, we usually, as Black people, he said, we usually shoot pretty low. We just want to say all Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Not even Black Lives are better, or Black Lives are the greatest, or whatever. Black Lives Matter. And he's like, people have a problem with matters. And he's like, matters means we at least matter. You got, and
We
it's,
exist.
yeah, we exist. And it was so true today, those remarks in this day and time. And
I was just gonna say, and you know what? And I guess it takes back to what Andre said earlier too. I mean, in the foundation of this country, we weren't even seen as a life.
true
We were property.
Right.
So for you to come now to still feel some type of way for when, to some people in their mind still, and I think for me, what I was gonna say with a lot of things, it really goes back to, for one, starting at home. I mean, for you to even say what you said about, with your neighbors and certain things. And I mean, and I grew up around, well, I guess what they consider black community. Not, I guess it was a black community, but there was no white people in my neighborhood. Truth be told, they were probably there to buy drugs or something, or they were passing through. There were no black people over there. Just saying. There were no black people, no white people. But, but I know what my parents taught me. I grew up with the stories of the family members who did go through Jim Crow, the ones who went through the civil rights movement. And then even what my parents, my grandparents, people endured in the workforce, all these things. Well, here I am being educated about this stuff over here. I can't say that every other African-American child had parents and grandparents, people who talked to them about those things. But then when it comes to white people, white families, what are you telling your children? How are you educating your children about things? Because if they're still getting stuff like that, which a lot of them are,
yeah,
Right.
that's why you grow up to have these situations. I'm gonna just say how I feel like even with the one in Brunswick, where you think it's okay because you think a man he matched the description of a robber, that it's okay for you to go out here and take liberties into your own hand, knowing that you have the power.
It's not
And then you
okay.
used to work for the police force too. So you had the power in your hand. You knew everyone else was going to be rally around you. But this black man, this black life, this black person, and had it not been for that video, would have not gotten the same treatment. Didn't get the same treatment
Right.
for 2 months.
There-
Well, yeah. So with what Kareem was saying with the younger generation, I'm pretty sure you've all seen the TikTok videos, the racist TikTok videos and stuff that's been going around. That really that really made me sad. I was like, wow, these kids are like 15, 16, 17 years old. Like, I thought this was on his way out, and once I dug, they were like, the girl who outed them, who was also white, she was white. She was like, in this town, I think it was sorry, it said Carrollton. He said, "This is how it is. He said, what this video is such a small piece of the iceberg." He said it's actually very rampant in I guess, Generation Z. Z.
I think there's Z.
yeah.
Z. It's actually very rampant that somehow this has become black suffrage of black people has become so comical, and people are using this to get attention on social media. And it's kind of almost like you're going backwards but forward. It's almost
I
like,
personally think, I mean, I know the cancel culture can sometimes go overboard with some things and deplatforming people, but in situations like this, I've seen, and there have been white people, just strictly white people, and they're doing the knee on the back of the neck of another white person, or they're, I saw one where they were doing blackface, and the kids, they were younger kids, I would probably say in their early teens, and then their excuse is, well, I didn't know that was offensive, and they're like giving the middle finger, like, that's offensive, but you don't know doing this. Where did you get that from? I'm sorry, that doesn't hold water with me personally, and I think they should be banned for life from all social media.
yeah, yeah.
And right now, that's possibly the biggest thing. Unfortunately, it's kind of sad comment on our culture, but to ban someone completely from all social media is like, for someone of that generation, is like putting them in prison. They're in a social media prison because their whole life is from birth till now has been online. You know, it's pretty much since they were able to pick up a tablet or a phone or whatever. And we can't let, I think we can't let hate grow. We have to root it out. And
call people out on their BS with it. I think that's the other thing
yeah,
I will
I've
say from some other people in this younger generation, you know, maybe even in my generation, definitely the older generation, where it was kind of, yeah, there's a problem with the races or whatever, but you kind of keep that quiet or don't try to fight it after a while. Just
right.
this generation is not playing that. Some of my students at Savannah State, some other people I know in the media and the workforce, I couldn't imagine. If I thought it was bad when Barack Obama was elected president and I was working at the TV station, I can't imagine right now in the workforce in certain different jobs what some people are going through and dealing with too, even in schools, you know. But the kids nowadays aren't afraid to speak up about these things, and that's what I love to call
Yeah.
people out. Hopefully, in that process, they will learn. So if, you know, even with some of those teenagers, some of those kids, hopefully as they grow, they will see beyond what their parents might have taught them or what they've learned other ways through Facebook or whatever. Because perception is one thing, but then reality is another.
That's another.
It's education. Like you guys have been saying, it's education. And it's not just education with white people educating. You know, most white people don't have some don't have any black friends, no black relatives. So they can't explain to their white children about black culture. So when it comes down to us, when we have friends who are white, I've been friends with her for 10 years. She asked me, she's honored during this time period. You seem so cool, calm, and collected. I said, what do you mean? Look at all this stuff happening. What stuff happening? It's been happening. That's like for us,
Correct.
as black people, this is life. This is
This
my
is
mom's life, grandma, great grandma, uncles. They're part of this. This is my life. This is what my life is entailed.
unfortunately, it's like and I found myself watching the video. It keeps coming up in my feed, but Childish Gambino, "This Is America."
It's
You
America.
know, I mean, every day, this is America, and it's not a burden that black men should have to carry. And we don't have a female perspective here on this particular show, but I know it happens to people. Not just we talk majority of men, black men, but black women go through this too. They suffer these injustices, and we've seen. Was it Brianna?
Breonna Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah, and you know,
Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland. Yeah, I'll say.
Right. You know, the list goes on, and it's a. I'm glad that these people's names will become something in our vernacular. Like George Floyd is going to become a name. I hope that is going to say we'll look to a point in history, and we, you know, even decades from now, we'll say this is where it all changed. There was what happened in the 60s and so forth, and even before that, and up to 2020, but maybe 2020, maybe this with George Floyd, having everybody. And I love that it's the world, because at first I was like, okay, this is horrible. I can't believe this. And then we see the 70 whatever year old man that gets pushed down by the cops, and they say, you know, and bleeds right there. And you see one cop try to go to his aid. They did call for an ambulance, but then they kind of walk it back and say, oh no, he was such and such extremist group person, and this guy's got a track record. He's actually going through cancer treatment, by the way. But yet a 75-year-old man is out there, 75-year-old white man, fighting for social justice, fighting for a race of people that look nothing like him, because he knows it's the right thing to do. He knows that social justice belongs to everybody, you know, and that freedom and is meant for every person in this country. And to be brutalized that way is appalling. And I was afraid that the optics would change, that George Floyd would go, because normally this is how it goes. And then you see, oh, now it's a white man, you know, and because it's this old white man, then it's a problem now. But it didn't, you know, and I'm glad. And I'm glad that it's not just, okay, now because it's a white problem, you know, it's going to be dealt with, definitely.
With that you said that, I was on Twitter, and my friend put this post, and this guy comes on, white male, and he said, I'm so sick of Black Lives Matter. You guys only care about black people. There's a ton of white people who've been killed by the police, but you guys don't say anything about that. Now, before I could say anything, I didn't know this other guy on Twitter. He was a younger white guy. He was like, he comes on, he said, no, I'm sick of people like you who are white males like me who aren't doing anything. You sit around, you criticize a whole nother group of people who've been underappreciated, undersupported, and you want them to save everybody. He said, unfortunately, these are my words, this is his words. He said, us as white people, we protest the wrong things. He said, white men have been unjustly killed by the police. Yes, but we as white men or white people have done nothing to protest or make it our problem. White man gets unjustly killed, guess what happens? We say nothing. We may go, oh, that sucks, but we're not protesting. We're not out in the street. He said, when has a white man been unjustly killed by the police and white people majority went out and protested? It doesn't happen. He was like, and when it came down to these cases he mentioned, I think David Schaefer, this guy named Tony Timpa. I think Tony Timpa actually got killed the same way George Floyd did the very next day. And as soon as it happened, Black Lives Matter symbol. They like that symbol, they put it on their pages, put it out there, and they're getting it out there. And he was saying, stop making it black people. They're already having enough problems. Let's join their fight. Join the fight, be an ally. Stop saying, but what about us? That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help us. Again, some people do not want to be educated. Guess what? Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is so much fun. You can believe anything you want to in any narrative you want to. And unfortunately, some people will continue to push this negative narrative that, just like Ed, you know me and Kareem and Patrick, we're not demons. We're not bad guys. How we do? Do we get angry? Of course we get angry. We're human like everyone else.
You got a right to.
We got a right to. But they say, why is everything about race? That's my heritage. Unfortunately,
why is every day I can't wear a hoodie? Why is every day that this could be the answer? Why is it I can't walk into a store and they assume one of my favorite songs, and I've always loved this song because it's oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Here you go.
Okay. I thought you were very surprised at what I was saying, like it was really profound. But you know, no. But one of my favorite songs is In Vogue's "Free Your Mind." I've always loved that song since it came out, and the rest will follow because it's the hell of a jam. It's rock and it's rap, and that song just eloquently says, you know, I can't. I'm singing. We're all singing the song in our head. I can't remember the lyrics, but you know, I can't look without being watched. You know, you made your mind before I made up mine. You know, when she's shopping in the song, and I love the thing, free your mind and the rest will follow. But yeah, the idea that you have a hoodie that you want to wear and you're afraid to wear it outside, that you're afraid because of your skin color to walk outside because there could be a neighbor, and it could be the neighbor that shakes your hand, says hello, but they see you're coming home at 2 a.m. from a party or something, or a social function or whatever, you know, and they're looking out the window and they're wondering who that strange person is, and then they realize it's you. Oh, it's just you. But you know, or you're you know, the gentleman in New York that was bird watching in Central Park, and then the white lady's like, she clutched her pearls, as the saying goes. And you know, this man is, you know, first off, you know, I'm a little afraid of dogs if like they're off the leash. I don't think they're going to attack.
And she was the one in the wrong.
She's the one in the wrong. And then she calls and says, oh, blah, blah, blah. And the guy is very, you know, matter of fact about it. And the smart thing he took out his phone and started filming. And I almost feel like that we should arm every person of color with a body cam somehow, or give them, like, I know Google glasses aren't a thing, but I wish we had that, you know, where you could start videoing stuff, and you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to worry that I can't wear this hoodie that would look awesome with this outfit that I feel like I just want to wear now. You should be able to go into a convenience store at 11:30 and look around and not buy anything and not, you know, be looked at, or, you know, or you should walk up next to a white person at a register and they not, you know, step over or whatever, you know.
Definitely be so afraid that you're gonna choke your own animal to do
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you're
I'm
doing.
gonna,
Like,
I'm gonna
yeah,
choke this
like
animal I love because of my fear of you who have done nothing to me, and you're filming me. You know,
definitely.
I don't understand it. As I'm just, you know, maybe I'm naive and maybe I'm stupid, but it just sounds. I mean, there's no common sense anymore, and there's always this overreaction. Everybody's quick to judge, and you know. How about this? I want to ask this question because certain people in charge who will remain nameless attacked the character of George Floyd. They said, "Well, you know, this isn't a good man. He was on this. He was on this this drug, or he did this." And I was scared to death. It's like, oh, please, please, social media, please don't latch on to that, you know, that soundbite, and then change the narrative of who George Floyd was. You know, maybe he's a man who made some mistakes, but he's part of a system that was stacked against him to begin with. But regardless of what he did or allegedly, the fact that what was done to him is
inhumane.
egregious. It's just
Exactly.
it's beyond acceptable in any possible way.
And
Oh, go ahead, Kareem. Go ahead.
no, I'll keep mine brief because I'm glad you brought up that point about that. And I know when I was at the TV station, and some people still do the same now, if we can help it, we don't try to bring up something. That stuff is irrelevant to the point of what went down and what was wrong about what went down. So what?
Right.
Every soul has their burdens that they have had to bear over whatever life they live. That did not give them the right at the time of how they handled things, to handle it the way they did, and for his life to come to an end that way, and for people to continue, which is that goes back to that's historical too, though. I mean, tear the black man down. I mean, quite frank. I mean, it's been a part of history for a while, whether it's in sometime media or even in some other narratives, to say, well, hey, well, let's try to justify why he deserved it. I even saw some of at least some of the white people I know that I'm friends with on Facebook and have worked with in real life and certain things, not real life, in reality and certain things too, you know, did see those things that they said about him, but still even agree. Like you said, they was like, this does not change the narrative of what was wrong with what they did to him. So what?
Right.
People have problems.
Right. And what happens to I told one of my friends this. I said, you know what I haven't been hearing lately? You're under arrest. Anything you say or do will be held against you in court of law. You have the right to remain silent.
When did the police become Judge Dredd? You know,
Yeah.
when did they
Right.
become the executioner? You know,
Right.
and you know, it's innocent until proven guilty, and it's amazing though, because I see now they're canceling the show Cops, which I'm you know, surprised it's been on 31 years, but they're canceling, and people are upset they're canceling that show. Well, maybe they should, maybe because that does promotes violence in a way. But it's like, I grew up watching Looney Tunes, okay? You know, Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd and all them, and the Roadrunner and all that, and Wile E. Coyote. And I can promise you, never once did I think about picking up an anvil and throwing it on someone. You know,
Facts.
it's
Facts,
like,
bro.
but it's like I've seen this back when heavy metal came out in the late 80s, and they said, oh, it's the devil's music, it's making people, rap music is terrible. It's rap music was a response to some of the egregious things that were done to people of color in the 80s. The war on drugs, basically, where black neighborhoods were flooded with drugs and cocaine, crack. We had the crack epidemic. And I saw this one time. It may have been a comedian that said this. It probably was Dave Chappelle, because I watch a lot of Dave Chappelle. But where are the majority of your liquor stores located? They're in black
Right.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, black community.
Why is the man who stood for peaceful nonviolence, Martin Luther King Jr., why is, if I go to any city in America that has an MLK Jr. Boulevard, why is it on the poorest side of town?
And that's why we named the movie that. Ding, ding,
Mhm.
ding.
Ding, ding.
But people don't. A lot of people do pay attention. Every MLK Jr. Boulevard I've been to, from here to like California, pay attention
That's
to it.
true.
Yeah, it's
That's true.
you know,
Everywhere.
I like in Washington there's this new street called Black Lives Matter
Yeah.
that leads up to the White House. I thought that was fantastic what they did there personally. And
Did you see the Black Lives Matter that was written on the road?
Oh,
going to the
yeah.
White
that's
House?
what I'm referring to. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
so every time our commander in chief gets in his helicopter and flies away from the White House, guess what he's going to look at? And so it'll be a gentle reminder that Black Lives Matter. And I think somebody put out some other tag on the end of it, and I forgot what it was. I can't remember right now, but
But you know what? I just want to piggyback off because we
Sure.
talked about it briefly earlier about this, but whether it be the liquor stores, food deserts in the black community, these different. But I'm saying that goes back to things are being put in the community that aren't considered assets. They're detrimental. You already have people who are dealing with different mental things, or even if some of them are not. But either way, if all is around them is poor food, again, not very other economic growth or wealth, liquor stores, drugs are in the community. Like, there you have a problem. And again, on top of all that, you put more money instead of into the neighborhood with some actual things that could be resources that are helpful. You put it into the police.
Yeah, I was ignorant growing up because I remember seeing package shop and wondering what that was, and I figured that's where people went to deliver packages or pick up packages. I didn't know, I was ignorant, and but I'm like, yeah, it's like, gosh, we can get into about 10,000 different things. Gerrymandering, which
I grew
both
up
parties
with,
are guilty of, Democrats and Republicans.
yeah. Oh yes.
They rewrite, whoever's in power rewrites the districts. I mean, I think we had a horrible time from some of my friends that went and voted just yesterday as we're recording this, but it was like yesterday for the primary here in Georgia. And they had new machines were taken to the wrong place. And then
Don't even get me started.
yeah, they were new
machines
machines.
were
They were new
breaking.
machines, and some people
Yeah.
had to vote at some one of my friends posted on Facebook. They had to go vote at one of the theaters. Yeah, instead of their precinct changed, and had they not looked it up, they would have gone to the wrong place. But like the machines show up, the people don't know because of the pandemic. Some of the regular poll workers didn't come out. I was actually asked to be involved in counting some ballots and all that, but they never contacted me. They got my email, but never contacted me, to help. However, I don't even know exactly what I would have done in the process, but I was never contacted. They got my email, but they never contacted me because I would have done my part to make sure votes were counted. And at least here in Georgia, in Chatham County, in Savannah, that I saw that it was a record turnout. In a pandemic, it was a record turnout. When normally people, that is so inspiring, I'm terrified about, 2 weeks from now, all these people that may end up getting sick, that were in the riots, that were maybe, using masks or not using masks. And, I worry
That's
about
how upset
that.
everyone is. That's definitely how upset everyone is. Like that's one of the things. Like, we know that COVID is out there, but it's like, it's either the virus is killing us or the racism is killing us. Like, it's which one are we going to fight for?
Unfortunately, it's probably the racism that's going to kill you first, because you can get some treatment for a disease like this, but you can't really get a treatment for racism, especially if a knee's been put on your neck and for 7 or 8 minutes or whatever. And
Al Sharpton said the knee's been on our neck for 400 years.
Yeah. And I may have told you this. I don't know if I said this before the recording or not, or in the recording, but I was watching the mini series on History Channel of Grant, and it was talking about what he had to deal with, and he ended up penniless and everything. um, uh, but he fought for slaves' rights, and he understood, and he could have went in and obliterated the South, and he said there's been enough bloodshed, and Lincoln was, the same way. Lincoln, he was his favorite general, and he was literally supposed to go to the Ford Theater that night, but him and his wife were going to do something else, so they didn't go. But he was on the list of people that were going to be assassinated, and there's this is a spoiler alert. I'm ruining it for you. Sorry, but they're on their I guess you call it stagecoach. I don't know what they called it back then. That they when a horse, drawn buggy or whatever, and a guy peeks in. He's on horse and he peeks in his head into there to see who was in there, and then he rode off. And then later on, they find out. They think that was Grant's wife thinks that was Booth that shot President Lincoln. But he was going to basically take out the entire head of the government there at the Ford Theater, and thankfully he didn't. And to see Grant, who didn't want to be in office, was basically swept in by popular opinion, and he allowed the South to keep their their guns, their whatever. He's like, there's been too much bloodshed, brother to brother, and this nation's got to heal. And then after Grant, he gets discredited eventually, and then they throw up corruption. And it reminds me of a report I saw, and it's a town in North Carolina. It might be Wilmington. I could be wrong about this, but I watched it on social media. There was this town that was an all-black town, and it was histories written by the winners of said conflict or whatever. But basically, it's like the Tulsa Massacre in a way, and they basically wiped this town out. They discredited everybody, but they had black elected officials. They had a bank. They had everything in this. And there's this plot of land that no one's built on where like the head of this government then was. And when you read the history books that from the local archives at the library, they had them locked away so that the average person could not see them. It was like a hidden history. And it's just a fascinating tale, but it shows how and then we get into all these Confederate monuments. Usually you win. If you win, you get a trophy. You go to the Super Bowl, you go to Disney, whatever. But the person that loses doesn't get to build a monument.
Right.
And I mean, these are my personal opinions, but I've been torn on the issue. I don't think you can change history at all because history has already happened. It's you can't physically go back and change it. But then when you see things like NASCAR made the announcement recently, after I'm not a NASCAR fan, so I don't know, but a guy's name was Bubba. He was a black man, and I saw him on the news, and he has Black Lives Matter put on his car and all that. And then the next day, which is like yesterday, they announced that NASCAR is not going to allow the Confederate flag to fly anymore in NASCAR events. That doesn't stop like people that come to the events from, flying their own rebel flag or whatever. And I'm not trying to take away from the sacrifices that the soldiers made in the South, but when you look at history, and as we get farther away from it, I think we can look at it a little bit more objectively from both sides. And I'm sorry, if a monument is put up for someone who was an oppressor, then maybe that monument needs to come down. I mean, because if we as a society decide that this is a symbol, it's like let me put it this way. What if we had, I don't know if it would be the same analogy, but what if there were statues of Hitler everywhere?
But you won't find that. They would not let that happen.
Right. Well, then why are we letting the other happen? And to be a black man, to see that, we have our own Confederate statues here, and Like there's the big one in Forsyth Park. I'm waiting for the day when when somebody's gonna say, let's take that down or change it. Or if we're gonna keep that one, let's put a monument right next to it. Same stature and everything that tells
The
the
history,
opposite, you know, the
explain it.
actual history. You know, let's not,
Yeah.
you know, let's not, because the people that lost the war, the South, got to write the narrative that has become what is considered, you know, a good reason for the rebel flag and the heritage of it all. And I know I'm going to anger some family and friends who might hear this. I don't care. I think it's 2020 and we should have already moved on. You know, maybe I'm a futurist. I'm
But,
concerned with what the
though the
future
war
has to hold.
was, I agree, and though the war was, but I mean, even after the war was lost down here, they still had the power, though.
Most of
And
the
then when you
monuments,
go,
though, were put up after the war. You know, they
well,
were
true,
put
but
up.
again, because the people that lost the war, and it
Right.
wasn't really necessarily us as Black people,
Right.
the white, but they still had the power in the South. And then even though they lost the war there, they were still able to set other laws in place that we're still dealing with again a century or so later. Yes, you're right. And my thing is, even with the monuments, I mean, I might upset some Black people, more or less if it stay or go. But I am more of an advocate for, if it's going to stay, then put other things there that tell full history.
Right.
Not just a fragmented piece of it. Or if not, then yes, take it down.
We're not trying to erase the past. We're not trying to say the past didn't
Exactly
happen.
that.
Right.
Yeah, definitely that. Like, definitely explain that the past didn't, that it happened, not just get rid of it. Because when we don't do that, then the kids and the younger generation don't know where we're pulling from. Sometimes, like, that's sometimes a problem with social media. They just see it. You know, kids just see it, and they don't know where it's coming from. You don't know why this person's angry. Some
Right.
people think it's funny or something like that.
They don't get the context of it.
Exactly. Don't get the context of it. But other people ways of social media, Just Mercy just came out, and I think we're putting that into the school system now.
Yeah.
As far as the race car driver situation, they have a documentary on Netflix, Uppity. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'll have to
Yeah,
check that out.
it's I think it's Willie T. Ribbs. I think that's his name. So it's a coincidence that, like, okay, they put this out on Netflix, and then next thing you know, on NASCAR, they're, you know, pulling that flag. So it's just like in response of everything, you feel me? And sometimes the question is, like, if things wasn't happening now, would it have shown light on things like Just Mercy or Uppity? It's crazy, because even if you watch Just Mercy, some of them things that happened, it wasn't that long ago. Some people are still now just getting released. If you haven't watched the movie,
I've watched it. That
watched
made
it.
me
That was incredible.
furious.
Yeah,
Right.
I haven't seen. I've heard a lot about it. I haven't seen it, but everyone's been talking about how.
Was that Michael
Michael
B. Jordan?
Yeah.
Michael
And
B.
the crazy
Jordan
thing
and Jamie
Yeah.
Foxx.
it came out
Yeah.
last.
Oh,
I got
Jamie
to see it
Foxx.
last
Oh my
year.
God. Yes.
Yeah. I saw it last year, like the week it came out, because I know.
We
I
went
guess,
to the theater. Remember the
yeah, me
theater?
too. Yeah. But
So yeah,
I
y'all went
just
to the
want to tie
movies
this back
without
to
us.
voting, though. I think that's what made me so furious about even in that movie. I mean, the sheriff of that town, like you said, this didn't happen that long ago, Patrick. That was like the late 1980s, early 1990s.
Right.
That guy who was the sheriff during that was still the sheriff up until about 2018, 2017,
Yes.
2018.
Yes.
The movie.
So you wrongfully
Yeah.
have wrongfully imprisoned people for so long. And again, it goes
And
back
still
to
in
how
office.
systems work with you. Still in office.
There's the movie that came out a few years ago. I think it was Quick and Slim, which I was looking forward to seeing. And I saw that.
Queen and Slim.
What did I say? Queen and Slim. I'm sorry. And then you get that part with the policeman there. And I couldn't even almost watch that part, you know, in the film. If no one's seen it, you have to, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's like, you know, the white cop, and you can pretty much figure what happens if you hadn't seen it. And it's disgraceful. But yeah, what media, what can we do what can we do in media? What can we do in film and television to change the narrative? I know everybody's tired of, me and Andre might have talked about this a little bit. you know, there's The Driving Miss Daisy, which is still a fantastic film, a great performances, Morgan Freeman, but people, Black people are tired of seeing that type of story. And you kind of talked about that, Patrick. We need to see more, and it doesn't have to be superheroes like Black Panther. We need to see more actual real people in real situations where they're not the victim. They're not where it's just accepted that they're not a Black person. They're just a person that, you know, they're a character in this film, but the fact that they're Black should not matter. You know, how do we get to that point? You know,
Education, education,
People that
Yeah,
education,
education,
is huge.
communication.
Yeah, education's huge. Like I have friends who literally thought when I was in high school thought I ate chicken every day for some reason. Never said anything, never ever mentioned that. But because they did not have any Black friends, never went over to any Black person's house or anything. All they can believe is stereotypes of what they see on TV and in movies. Because
Right.
unfortunately, Black people, when they were introduced into media, we were the slaves, the maids, the Sambos. We were all these negative things. We weren't seen as people. So I think right now, as filmmakers, it's great to make, you know, the Black Panthers and these films about, you know, struggle or comedy. I think they have their spots, but unfortunately, people don't realize. It sounds kind of funny. People don't realize that we deal with issues that they deal with. It's not just
right.
all Black issues. Not all of us are in gangs. Not all of us have dads who were in prison or went to jail or are dead or
Mm-hmm.
like that's that part of our narrative, unfortunately, our culture, because of things that we couldn't control from years ago. Of course, but that's not who we are. That's not our narrative. We like
Right.
going to Target. We like ice cream and gelato. We like
Yeah.
sushi and
I do like ice cream.
You mentioned the word Sambo, and I remember it was on where the Parkers is. For anybody who's in Savannah, lived in Savannah for a long time, there was a restaurant called Sambo's, and it was on Victory Drive and Wallen Street by the old Walmart, where Parker's is, across from what is Home Depot now by the Parkway, the Truman Parkway. And I remember, you know, because I grew up on the east side of Savannah when I was really young, and I went to school over there. And I remember seeing that restaurant, and I said, that's an interesting name, Sambo's. And then I found out later it closed. It might have been early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. I don't remember. But it was later on when I found out, I came across that word, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not that's a derogatory term. And we literally had that restaurant named that, and it was like, I guess it was like Southern cooking or something, you know, or something like that, I assume. And I don't think we ever ate there, but it just, I'm kind of appalled looking back with my 2020 set of eyes, you know, you know, that existed, you know. I mean, people, the younger generation, I think they're finally, with all this access, they have more access to information than my generation, or than any generation has ever had, to what it was physically like. Because you can tell all day, you know, oh yeah, we marched on Selma, we did this, you know, Rosa Parks sat up in the, you know, the bus, and, you know, and this and that. But then when you see video of this, you see archival video, and you see you see these things. I think we live in this generation's a more visual generation, and when they see that, they get the context, and they're like, how could, it blows my mind how, even for me, it blows my mind how some things existed, like some things that were acceptable, you know, that should never be acceptable. And there are parts of this country that I don't think have grown up. Personally, I don't think they've educated themselves, because they live in their own bubble, you know, they live in their own
half a state of
world
Georgia.
that
No, I'm just
That what?
I said that's half the state of Georgia too. No, I said I was joking.
Oh yeah, well
No,
the state of
that's
Georgia has a long way to go.
Yeah, so-
We still have a long way to go. You know,
Yeah.
we're not Mississippi. We're not, you know, some of the ones that really need to grow. But yeah, there's always room for growth, and there's always room for more understanding and for listening and for learning. And it's not the white savior coming in and saving everything. It's more than that. It's from a white perspective. It's, you know, we can join the marches for Black Lives Matter. We can be part of it, but it's not for us to speak up until it's honestly, for lack